Hello, Jessica.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How about you?
Fine. How's Kim? How is Kim?
How's Kim? Oh, she's doing well as far as I know.
Where is Beatrice?
Beatrice, she's having some internet trouble, but we're hoping that she comes back in time for her part of the presentation.
Okay.
Hi everyone.
Hello.
Wow, yes,
Hi, how are you? How are you, Prof. Moss?
Fine. Good to see you, sir. Welcome.
Nice to meet you, Fatima.
Hello, Soliman.
Hello, how are you? Everything
Fine.
is okay. How are you, Jessica?
I'm good. How about you?
Fine, everything is okay.
That's good. That's good.
We will start today at 7. In Egyptian time, it is 7 now.
Okay. Nigerian time is 6.
6, good.
It is 5 minutes after 6. Welcome all.
It is
Welcome all.
1:05 p.m. here.
1:05 p.m.
PM, yes, it's afternoon. And Moses, whenever you're ready, everybody seems to be here. Oh, there's Beatrice.
Okay. I'm trying to send Beatrice a chat.
Oh, she just came in, yeah.
You just came in?
Just now.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm back. I was kicked out permanently, but I'm back. Thank you.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, you are all welcome to this to another session. We are going to review our own good evening, participants.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, you are welcome to another session now.
Thank you, Moses. Thank you.
Yeah. So what we're going to do today is to continue. We're going to review the alcohol and drugs section. That was started yesterday. It was a bit, what will I say, rowdy somehow, and we couldn't really finish. So we'll start with it today. Since we are now conversant with it, we just go ahead. So please, I want your responses. Remind us again, D1, before we ask our clients, let's go back to see what is scoring for D1 to D. Before we continue. So, what do you agree on D1? Please continue. Hello, please. What was happening to continue? Hello, Jessica. Hello, Jessica.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
You cut out a bit for a moment, but we can mostly hear you, I believe.
Wow. What's happened to the network today? But can everyone hear me, please?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We are going to start, afresh, on the alcohol and drug section, because we need to be making references to, D1 to D13 where we started, so that it will be easier for us to grasp. We don't want to start in midway. So what did you agree on the D1 past 30 days? What was our score, please?
26.
Okay. And then for year of regular use?
06.
Good. And but you see here, it's not blocked like the one of yesterday. Can you see? The route of administration here is not blocked like the one you had yesterday. So there are some variations a little, but that doesn't matter. What did we agree on D2, 30 days?
26.
Okay. And year of regular use? Years of regular use?
06.
Okay, thank you. And then what about D3?
D3, 30 days, 01.
Okay. Yes, and then years of regular use,
00.
route of administration,
5.
okay, thank you. Then D4,
D4, 0000, nil.
okay, thank you very much. What about D5?
D5, 0000, nil.
Thank you very much. So I don't want to, just refreshing, our memory about what we did so that we can continue. Today, I'm sure we'll finish it in a few minutes. And then
Okay.
D6.
D6, 000, nil, 2.
So please, I hope you are following so that we don't have any confusion about it. And then D7.
D7, 30 days is 02.
Right.
And year of regular use is 00. Root of
Yes.
administration is 1.
Thank you very much, Fatima. Then,
Yes. I can't hear again. Oh God, can't hear
what do you ask on D8?
Hello, I lost it. Okay.
You cut out for about a minute there, Moses. I don't think we heard what you said.
I'm sorry, it's my network. I don't know what to do about it. I'm sorry about that. So D8, what do you agree?
D8 is 000. It's nil.
Okay, thank you very much. And D9?
D9 is nil too, 0000.
Yes, okay. And D10?
Then D10, cannabis is 04 for the 30 days.
Yes.
Year of regular use is 00, and root of administration is 3.
Thank you very much. D11?
D11 is 0000.
Thank you. Then
D12 is 000.
Thank you, Fatima.
Then
And what
D13.
Yes.
D13, 30 days is 04. Year of regular use is 00, and root of administration is 3.
Well, it's 3 or blocks. So thank you very much. So we cannot move on because I hope you got all this course there so that we can go ahead. Thank you, and we're now back to George. George, thank you very much for your cooperation, for your attention, for your time, and your patience in giving us correct responses, all through the sections. Today, we still continue with the alcohol and drug section. Yesterday, we tried to look at the grade of drugs used and to see which one you use and in the past 30 days, and then how many of those you use regularly for in the previous years, and then
Moses, we lost you a bit.
Yes.
Moses?
Yes. For over 3 minutes now or so.
Moses? Moses?
I think we may have lost him.
Oh, today is an interesting day.
It is. It is. I'm not sure if he's there at all. It says he's still in the meeting.
He's still in the meeting. Let me try calling him.
Okay. I'll keep checking from the waiting room to make sure he doesn't have to rejoin.
Have you spotted him yet?
Not yet. Oh, is he still here? It says he's still here, but
He's still there?
it says that he's still in the meeting, but I'm thinking he might not be.
Yeah, because he's not picking his phone either.
It must have been a network problem.
Yeah, I think so. So maybe what I can do, sorry?
Should we just come back to his section?
No, I think I can just continue, and then when he comes back, he can.
He's back.
Oh, he's back.
Good.
Okay.
Thank
Welcome
you,
back.
I don't know. Something is happening to my network, so I'll switch to another one.
No worry. Today is a big
Okay.
day, so please continue.
It is. You sound much better so far.
Yeah.
I don't know what. It's unfortunate. So I had to change to another network. Let's see. Okay. So can you see it now?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Hello, George. Are you there for us today?
I think I'm here.
Sorry about this interruption in the network. Okay, we'll continue from where we stopped yesterday. So we want to find out now which substances that you've measured, you've mentioned all along. You've told us about alcohol, you've talked about heroin, you've talked about sedatives, and then also cannabis, and sometimes a few occasions combination. We want to know which one is or are the major problems to you. Which substances?
I think alcohol is a big elephant here.
Okay. Alcohol. So alcohol is the problem here. You've had, so what do we call here?
D1.
Pardon?
D1.
No, look at the interviewer. It says, look at here. It says, code the number next to the drug in question, 0 to 1, 1 to 10. Okay. So you say D1.
Okay. I thought it's D1.
So 01.
The number is number, not the this is.
Alphabet. Okay, 01.
Okay, thank you very much. So. Is it clear to everyone, please? Yes. Or does anybody have any questions? Pardon?
It's clear.
Okay. So D1. Okay, let's move on. How long was your last period of voluntary abstinence from alcohol, George? How long was your last period of voluntary abstinence from alcohol?
There was a period I was abstinent for about 2 months.
Okay. Yes, but we said the last period of voluntary abstinence, the last one, the very last one.
It was actually the only one.
Okay. That was 2 months?
Yes, about 2 years ago for 2 months.
About 3 years ago?
2 years ago for 2 months.
About 2 years ago for 2 months? Okay, thank you. So what do we call here?
02.
Hello, participants.
02.
Okay.
02.
Pardon?
02.
Does everyone agree? No, yes, okay, I'm talking to the other. Do you all agree?
Yes.
Okay. And you are sure the abstinence was not due to any hospitalization, George?
No, it was purely just trial error.
Okay, it was just your own decision.
Yeah, voluntary.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, George. Then, how many months ago did this abstinence end? So you said, okay, please clarify for us. Hello, George.
Yes, yes, I can hear you.
Yes, I said, how many months ago did this abstinence end?
It was 2 years ago, so approximately 2 years ago.
So that
So
would be times 12. That would be 24 months.
About 24 months ago, yes.
Okay. So what do you call participants?
24.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's go to D17 now. How many times have you had alcohol delirium tremens? We mean by delirium tremens, George, we mean if you've ever had any reaction, to stoppage of drugs, just 24 to 48 hours after you stopped drinking alcohol. Did you experience any things like you're shaking of your hands or limbs, and then you became you were sweating, and then you became disoriented, and maybe you have like experienced something like fever, and maybe you were hearing strange voices that others could not hear, or even see some strange figures, particularly looking smaller than the usual size, and which require medical attention, and you are maybe afraid of such an experience. How many times have you had? Is the question clear to you, George?
Yes. During those 2 years when I was abstinent, the first few days were a bit difficult, a bit of shaking, a bit of fever, a lot of headache, certainly.
Okay.
But since I had some Valium with me, it could help me to at least calm down and pain relievers, and a lot of water. So after a few days, it seemed to stabilize.
So it didn't require any medical attention?
No, I think I survived on self-medication.
Okay. So what do we call participants?
I didn't understand you.
No, he only explained the delirium tremens he experienced, the symptoms, which are in agreement with the delirium tremens we talked about. 24 to 48 hours after he drank the last drink, then he experienced something like fever, and the other symptoms that we constitute delirium tremens. So what do we call here? He experienced delirium tremens in a nutshell. So what do we call here? Hello, participants, are you there?
I'm confused, sir.
Oh, okay, because me, I'm not a medical personnel. Actually, delirium tremens happens, with those who drink alcohol and are dependent on alcohol, who experience withdrawal symptoms, and those who experience withdrawal symptoms are those who are dependent. Now, 24 to 48 hours after the last dose, usually it comes when, for instance, in our environment here, when they have an accident, or they may have some severe malaria and don't go out to drink, or something happens and they didn't go out to drink. Now, 24 to 48 hours, they start sweating, their hands are tremulous, and then they become confused, disoriented, to time, and then they may hear voices, and the voices are not very pleasant voices, maybe insulting them, calling them all kinds of derogatory names. And then they may see strange figures. They may see people and they look smaller than the usual size. So, and that can be very frightening. So that's what we call delirium tremens. In very severe cases, in fact, some of them may even convulse. So most times it requires medical attention, like a medical emergency. So he said he experienced it. So that's what do we quote here? How many times, that's the same question. How many times have you had alcohol DTs? So what do we quote here?
One.
I don't want to
One.
give good. I don't want to give you the answer, but let's go together. It's easier that way. This is supposed to be a face-to-face, but doing it online and coding it, I don't need to rush. All of us must go together. Okay, thank you, George. How many times have you had overdose on drugs? Or have you ever had any overdose on drugs that you used before? For instance, you said you've used heroin before, you've tried sedative before, and then you've tried cannabis. Have you ever overdosed on any of those?
No, I think I take those ones in very small quantities.
Okay. So what do you call participants?
0,
0, 0, 0.
Thank you. Thank you. So we're making progress. Okay, we'll go to the next question. How many times, George, in your life have you been treated for alcohol abuse? That includes whether it was detoxification, or you are in halfway houses, or in or outpatients, or even attended up to 3 times of self-care groups, for instance, AA or Alcoholics Anonymous.
Well, during that period I mentioned, I attended some AA meetings for a short period, maybe just about a week.
Okay, just for a week?
Yeah, that was for a week, yes.
Okay, let's go back to the question. Okay, for a week.
Okay.
So what do you quote here?
0, 1.
Okay. Does anybody have a different answer?
I thought since it's a week, it should be 0, 7.
Yeah, 0, 7 because it's a week.
0, 7, 7. Yeah, 0, 7 per week, right.
Well, listen, how many times in your life have you been treated for? He was treated for, he said, for 7 days, right?
7 days,
George, please clarify for us. George, please clarify for us.
Yes, it was for 7 days, but it was a one period. You go for AA meetings 7 times in that 1 week.
So do you still say it's 7 times or 7 days or once?
That is, I don't know how you look at it, but when you say you're going for
no,
AA
I'm not
meeting,
talking to you. I'm talking to the participants, George. Sorry.
It's once in his lifetime.
0, 1.
It's 0, 1.
Okay, 1.
0, 1.
Thank you very much. Because it's 1 period. Thank you. Thank you. I hope it's clear to all of us.
One illness, one sickness, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much. One segment of treatment. Thank you. So how many of these were detox only? Have you ever gone for a detox?
not a formal one. Not a
Pardon?
formal detox. Not a formal detox program. This is purely try and error. Painkillers, some Valium here, lots of water and rest. So it is purely self-medication, not a formal detox program.
So thank you very much, Judge. So what do you call participants?
0, 1.
0.
Okay, let's clarify. 0, 0, 0, 1.
0, 0.
Okay, it's not a formal detox. It's not a formal detox. He tries something on his own. So we call 0, 0. Okay. How would you say you spent? How much would you say you spent during the past 30 days on alcohol?
I would say about $400. Yeah.
Pardon?
I would say about $400.
$400.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So what do you call?
$400.
No, $400. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Judge. So,
Excuse me, sir.
yes.
Must this be in dollars, or we can, translate?
No, he gave us you can put in your local currency, but he gave us in dollars. So go by what he assume that you are interviewing him in a place where he spent those dollars, or where dollar is the main currency.
Okay.
But if you're doing it with your client in Nigeria, you talk about your naira. But you understand what I mean?
Yes, sir, I understand.
But if he's just coming into Nigeria and then he's used to spending his dollar in America, or maybe his pounds in British pound, then you can now find a way of converting it. If you think you're not comfortable with the dollar, you can convert it to your naira, the naira equivalent. No big deal. Okay, so let's move on. Thank you, George. How many times in your life have you been treated for drug abuse? For instance, for the cannabis, for the opioid, for the cannabis you've used before, and for the heroin?
No, not been treated for any of them.
You've not been treated before?
No.
Okay, thank you very much. So what do you call here?
00.
Oh, Domeji, 00.
Thank you. All right, let's move on. And well, we cannot say how many of these we are detox because he has never been treated before. So what do you put here?
00.
Pardon?
NN.
Yes, it's not applicable because he has not been treated before. He has not been treated for drug abuse. Apart from the alcohol, which is the major drug, he has never been treated for drug abuse.
Yeah. It's
Yes,
NN.
yes. NN.
Okay. All right, let's move on.
Sorry, sir.
How
Can I
much
just?
will you... Yes, okay.
Sorry, sir, please. This D99, since they said it's optional, and from the answer in D25, it would appear that would have probably skipped that D99. I don't know whether it's correct to have skipped it.
Well, it's optional, so you can go either way.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Or what do you think? Yeah, we can go either way.
Thank you.
Because you want to get as much information as possible.
Yes, just
So,
for the client to be sure we are paying enough attention. Doesn't feel that, but I've answered you this the other way. This question wouldn't have been necessary, something like that.
Okay, yeah, well, that's fine. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. How much would you say you spent during the past 30 days on drugs?
Well,
on the
not,
cannabis or heroin, and then yes.
Not too much. Not too much. Probably about $40 maximum.
$40 maximum.
Maximum, yes.
Thank you very much.
Not much.
So what we call participants? $40. Okay, let's move on. You say, how many days have you been treated in an outpatient setting for alcohol or drugs in the past 30 days?
Absolutely.
Includes NA and includes AA.
Not in the last 3 months, no.
Not in the last 30, what about the last 30 days?
No, not in the last 30 days either.
Okay. So what do we call here? How many days have you?
00.
Thank you. Thank you. Then we move on. How many days, George, in the past 30 days have you experienced alcohol problems? This includes, for instance, you are craving for the alcohol, or you have withdrawal symptoms, or you are having, maybe you feel high, and maybe became talkative or disinhibited, or wanted to stop and be unable to stop?
I think alcohol problems, headaches, shivering, withdrawing, craving, I think that is almost daily for the
So,
period that.
Thank you very much.
Yes, probably daily,
Okay. So, participant, what do we quote here?
3-0.
3-0. Thank you, Oga. All right. Thank you. And then we are now on D28. And then how many days in the past 30 days have you experienced? Okay, we have answered alcohol problems, but how important to you now is treatment for these alcohol problems?
Sorry, sir. D28, sir.
D28, okay, sorry.
Yes.
Alcohol problems include craving, withdrawal symptoms, disturbing effects of use, or wanting to stop and be unable to.
I didn't get your question. How different is that from the previous question? 28 from 26, 26 and 28.
Yes, D28 is saying, how many days in the past 30 days have you experienced alcohol problems? Then this one is saying, how troubled or bothered have you been in the past 30 days by these alcohol problems? You have it, please refer to your client response card, and we said yes, rating scale, and then we said these alcohol problems include craving, withdrawal symptoms, disturbing effects of use, or wanting to stop and be unable to. So use your rating scale, the client or patient rating scale, and tell us how troubled or bothered have you.
Yes, I think I'm considerably troubled by my alcohol problem. Considerably.
Okay, considerably. Yeah. So what does that tell us? So what do we rate here?
Considerably is 3.
Do you all agree?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so 3. Thank you very much. Then we go to D30 now. How important to you now is treatment for these alcohol problems? How important? Go back to your client response. Pardon?
What of D29?
No, that is for drugs. We are dealing with alcohol now. When we're through the alcohol, D29 comes for drugs. This is alcohol. This section is purely for alcohol. So you will see D27 and 29 below. Is that okay, Fatima? Hello, Fatima? Hello?
I'm okay, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for asking that question. It's very pertinent. So, how important to you, George, is treatment for these alcohol problems?
Certainly very, very important.
Very important. So, colleagues, what do we score here?
On the patient rating scale is very important there. I'm not sure.
0-4.
Not
4.
No, okay, George. Pardon? George, please refer to your client rating scale again. Tell us, is it, the options given are not at all, slightly, moderately, considerably, and then extremely. So, very important to you means what? Help us clarify.
I think I'd put it at extremely important on the scale you gave me. Yes.
Thank you very much. So extremely important. We called it what?
4.
What do we call here?
4.
So you see, thank you. So we called 4 here because you have to clarify. If you give something outside, you ask him to go back to the client rating card, and they also clarify it for you. And thank you for the observation. Thank you. So we've called 4. Now go back to the drug section now, and Fatima, that will answer your question. How many days in the past 30 days, George, have you experienced drug problems?
No, drugs is not an issue, so it's not problematic at all, no.
So why do you call here? Hello, colleagues, what do we score here?
0, 0.
0, 0.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's move on. How troubled or bothered have you been in the past 30 days by the drug problems?
Not too much. Not too much. It's not, except for the police arrests, it's not a big issue.
So if you are going to score it, how would you score?
Just slightly because of the just slightly because of the police arrest, but it's nothing too big.
So slightly. That is. So what do we score here?
1.
Colleagues?
1.
Okay. Thank you. So you see, he said drugs is not a problem at all. You can easily gloss through, and say, okay, since he said it's not a problem at all, and then jump to 31. But you see, when we said how important, he said no, it's not important, but he said had a police problem, and then he said slightly. So you don't just assume that you just keep unnecessarily. Thank you. Now, how important to you now is treatment for these drug problems? If you've had problem with the police, do you think you need treatment for the drug problems, George?
A police problem is a police problem. A police problem is a police problem. So that one we can square at the police station.
Okay. So you don't think you need treatment? Sorry. Let me borrow from Peter. I'm laughing as Moses now, not as a Cancelo. Okay. So what do we score here? Reach our client's ratings card and score it for us, please, George.
So in terms of treatment, it's 0. Yeah, 0.
0. Okay. So we score 0 here. So thank you very much, George. Beatrice, I think you can take over. Thank you, George, for your patience and for your kindness, and also for your time.
Thank you. Moses, just before you end, there is one question from Grace. She wants to know the code for D17.
D17.
Yes,
okay.
As you also stop sharing, you can stop sharing. Okay. You can check it fast. D17, yes.
Okay, fast. Okay, D17. So what did we say D17 was? We said it was 01. Is it not?
01. 01.
01. Was it not?
Yes, it is. 01.
01, please, Grace. So thank you. So let me stop sharing.
Thank you, Moses, for that elaborate presentation once again, and for taking us successfully through the section on drugs. Just allow me to quickly open my slides. It looks like they closed when I was kicked out as well. So I'll quickly open them and I will be with you shortly. So my ASI is opening now. Takes a bit of time because it's in PDF. Okay, so I will now begin by sharing the PowerPoint so that we can run through the next section. The next section is actually the legal section. And the legal section, I don't know whether you can actually see the screen. Are you able to see the screen, Jessica?
Yes, we can see it.
Yes, we can see.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you very much. So we have successfully looked at very many sections of the ASI. You notice the section on alcohol and drugs is very elaborate, and that was important because it's a very important area. Remember, the primary issue that we are working on is actually alcohol and drugs, but the other sections are also areas that are significantly affected when clients are using substances. And therefore, that was an area that we decided to give more time because of its importance. And so thank you, Moses, for being able to take us successfully through that area. So next, we are going to take our client through the legal status section. And hopefully, if we are able to finish, we will also be able to go to look at the next section about family and social relations. So when we take the client through the legal status section, this is how we introduce. Please remember, we always must transition our client from one section to the next one. So now we are going to tell the client that I'm going to ask you questions about your legal status. We will look at any legal history, such as probation, parole, charges, convictions, incarcerations, detainments, illegal activities, and any desire or need for legal counsel. And then, of course, we ask them if they are ready to move on. Then we shall introduce the section and tell the client that that section will focus on legal history. There will be questions considered relevant to the client's treatment plan. Please remember, some of the questions we ask may make the client wonder why we are asking them. And you remember our client is very honest. Sometimes he challenges us and tells us that I'm a person of upright integrity, I can't do those things. So we should always remind them that it's a standard tool that we use for all our clients. We need to probe to obtain information that is as complete as possible, and we can address and record details. So this is one area where we also need to make many legal comments in our ASI. The first two questions focus on the criminal justice status. We want to know whether our client, current admission, the one that we are having right now, might it have been prompted by the criminal justice system or not? That's where we begin. Then in the next question, we want to know whether the client might be on probation or parole, because sometimes the client was arrested, charged, but put on probation. So even as they are here in our space, they are actually someone on probation. So we want to know that, and we code them 0 for no and 1 for yes. And we are advised to cross-check with other future questions. In question 3 all the way to 16, we are looking at whether our client has been arrested. And it is important to think of arrests. We are reminded not to only think of convictions. Remember, our client in the past was telling us he has been arrested, but he sorts it out with the police. So in this section, we are interested in that, not just the convictions, but also the arrests. We want to also know whether there have been formal charges, which is beyond just questioning by police. And we are being reminded to exclude juvenile crimes. So if our client committed crimes when they were young, under 18, we are asked to exclude them unless, of course, they were later charged in adulthood, which sometimes happens. Because I don't know, in my country, I have seen this. Youth commit crimes when they are 17. And then, so that time they are juveniles. But by the time they are charged, they are actually in adult. So that does happen. So if the charge came when they were an adult, then we shall include. If it was when they were below 18 years as a juvenile, then we don't actually look at that. And you're reminded, if L17 is an N, then L3 to 16 will be 00. Then in L17, we look at now convictions rather than arrests. So we are being told that if the offenses are small, smaller minor offenses, we don't include them. So we are looking for convictions, which include fines. We look for probation. We look for suspended sentences, because all these are forms of convictions. And then we look for charges for parole or probation violations, because they can also be counted as convictions. In L18 and 19, now we look at the minor offenses or misdemeanors. And these generally relate to disorderly conduct without committing a particular crime. So then in L21 and 23, we actually focus on incarceration. We want to know whether our client has actually been in jail. And we want to know how many months they have spent in jail or prison or a detention center. And we are advised that if the number is 100 or more, look at the spaces. The spaces are only 2. So we enter the maximum number, which is 99. And by the way, that reminds me about the earlier section where someone was asking if we can ask the money in our local currency. Yes, we could, but you notice the boxes provided may not fit some of our local currencies when we convert from dollars. So we might want to ask in our local currency and then convert to dollars for purposes of fitting in the spaces. Now, if the number is 100 or more, we enter 99. We are being told that we should count as 1 month any period that is 2 weeks or longer. So if our client tells us, I have been actually incarcerated, but it was only for 3 weeks, or it was only for 3 weeks and 1 day, we should count it as a month. But if it's below 2 weeks, then we don't count that as a month. Then we are told to note the question number L3 to L16 that's assigned to the charge. And if there is more than one charge, if our client has been charged for more than one crimes, then we are advised to note which of them is the most serious crime. Then L24 and L25, in L24, we are looking at their current status. So we want to know presently, is George awaiting charges, or is he on trial, or even sentencing? So that's what we focus on in 24 and 25. And we are told, in case he happens to be under multiple charges, we select the one that is most severe. Then L26 and L27, we are now focusing on illegal activities. So we want to know whether in the last 30 days, our client has been incarcerated for being involved in an illegal activity. Now, we also want to know how many days they have spent within that situation. Remember, in the area of, there was general information, question 9 and 10, was actually talking about issues related to whether they have ever been in confinement. So if the client this time tells us no, and in that section they told us yes, or vice versa, we can actually counter check. And also the area of E11. Then the next questions, 28, 29, look at how bothered the client is by the legal problems using the card, the client rating card. So we ask them to look at it, and we ask them to tell us where they think they rate how troubled they are by the legal problems. And we also ask them how important it is for them to get counseling for those legal problems, just like for all the other areas. So that's just an introduction of what that section will be about. So now we get hold of our ASI, and now we are going to begin scoring the legal section. So I will be trying to score as we go along. And so the first question, L1. So George, welcome once again to this section. I want to thank you because you have been very cooperative, and I appreciate that you have been very honest with us and taken time to answer our questions. I wish to remind you, as we had said earlier, that the questions we ask here are asked to every one of our clients. So if they feel a bit extreme, it is because they are standard. Now, I also want to let you know that in this section, I will be asking you questions about your legal status. I'll be asking you questions regarding whether you have been arrested, whether you have been charged, whether you have been detained or incarcerated, whether in the last 30 days you have been charged for any crime, whether you're awaiting any trial or sentencing. I will be asking you if you have been arrested, some of the crimes that you may have been arrested for, and feel free to answer these questions. And where you feel you have a question to ask me, please do stop and ask me. And as I said earlier, if there's any question you feel that you should not answer, please don't answer and let me know. Thank you very much, George. So now the first question. Now, this current admission in this treatment program, was it by any chance suggested by the criminal justice system?
No, it was not.
Sorry?
No, it was not.
It was not. So participants, what's the answer there?
1.
The answer is it 1? Was this admission prompted or suggested by the criminal justice system?
Zero.
The answer is 0 because he said no. Thank you. So George, are you by any chance on parole or probation?
No.
No. So what shall we code there?
Zero.
We shall code 0. And we are advised, if George had said yes, besides writing 1, in the comment section, you're supposed to note down, inquire a little more, probe. How long, what was the issue? So note that in the legal comments. Now, question number 3. So George, I'm going to be asking you about certain crimes that people get arrested and charged for. Please do let me know, for each of the crimes I'm going to mention, whether you have ever been arrested or even arrested and charged. So the first one is shoplifting or vandalism. Have you ever been arrested or charged for any such crime, George?
No, that is below me. No.
So that is below you. You have never done that, George? Okay, so what do we code there, participants?
0, 0.
0, 0, thank you very much. George, I'm going to ask you the next type of crime. Now, this one has to do with parole or probation violations. So you probably were charged, you were put on probation or parole, and then you violated the requirements. Has that ever happened, George?
That has not happened.
Not at all. So what do we code there?
0, 0.
0, 0. George, have you ever been arrested or charged because of drugs?
Yes, I've been found in possession of drugs which are illegal here. So, so far in my lifetime, about 5 times.
So you have been arrested about 5 times?
Yes, for possession.
For possession of drug. Which drug was this?
That was cannabis.
That was cannabis. Thank you. So what do we record here?
0, 5.
0, 5. Thank you. Okay, thank you, George, for that. Have you ever been arrested or charged for a crime related to forgery?
No.
No? So what do we score there?
0, 0.
0, 0. Very good. George, have you ever been arrested for a crime of being in possession of weapons?
No.
No? What do we code there, participants?
0, 0.
0, 0. Thank you. George, have you ever been arrested or charged for an offense of burglary or breaking and entering?
Sure, I do. I don't lift, I don't steal. So,
okay. So that has never happened?
That has not.
Okay, so participants, what do we code there?
0, 0.
Thank you. Yes, I know, George, you said you have not been arrested for shoplifting, but I need to ask you this other question because, like I did say to you, these questions are standard. Have you ever been arrested because of robbery?
Same answer, Councillor, same answer.
Okay. So the answer is no?
0, 0.
0, 0. Thank you. Okay, thank you, George. Now, the other question I want to ask you is whether you have ever been arrested because of a crime called assault.
There's one instance we fought, so in a pub, so I don't know if that is an assault because that was settling things man to man, blow to blow. You blow me, I blow you.
Okay, so were you arrested for that?
No, we were not arrested. I think it was settled within the precincts of the pub.
Okay, so you have never been arrested for any such fighting?
No, it was not.
Thank
0,
you, George.
0.
So what do we code there?
0, 0.
0, 0. Thank you.
0, 0.
George. Thank you. So George, have you ever been arrested for an offense related to arson or having burnt up some property?
No.
No. So what do we code there?
0, 0.
0, 0 also.
0, thank you. George, allow me to ask you a few other questions, which if they sound a bit awkward is because they are part of these questions that we ask all our clients. Have you ever been arrested for rape?
No, not for rape.
Okay, so what do we code there?
0, 0.
0, 0. Thank you very much. How about acts of homicide or manslaughter, George?
Not that either.
Okay, so what do we code there?
0, 0.
0, 0. George, what about prostitution?
Certainly not.
Sorry?
0, 0.
Certainly not.
0-0, yes. And you can see sometimes the client may feel angry at the questions you're asking. That's why we have to constantly remind them that these are standard questions. Okay, George, have you ever been arrested for contempt of court?
No, we don't go to court. We settle things before we go to court.
Okay, thank you. So what do we code there?
0-0.
0-0. Now, finally, George, might you have ever been arrested for any other reason other than the ones that I have mentioned there?
Yes, I've an arrest for drunken driving. So,
Okay, thank you. So that one we are going to record in the lower section of this questionnaire. Thank you very much, George, for your very honest, responses to these questions. So now, George, I'm going to be asking you one more question.
Sorry, Beatrice.
Yes, please.
Bola is speaking. I'm just so wondering. He said he's been arrested for drunk driving.
Yes.
But we didn't ask him how many times.
Yes, the reason is because it's coming below there under question number 18, 19, and 20. So under question L19, we are coming down. It's considered under the minor offenses. So we shall see it in the lower section. Actually, L20, yeah?
Okay, that's fine.
Yes,
Thanks.
L19, L20. Thank you very much, Bola. So
Okay,
now we are going to...
Sorry for Michael. Then why do we have that order if something like what we just got can be filled in? Why do we have that provision for others?
The reason for other is because there could be another crime that happens in another country that is not necessarily recorded here, but which is considered a major crime. So that is why the provision for other is to make sure that nothing is left out or nothing is forgotten.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. So now we are in L17. L17, George. Now looking at the issues that you raised above, that you said you have been arrested or charged for. Now I'm going to ask you a question about any of these crimes that actually resulted in a conviction. So looking at what you gave me, you told me that you were actually arrested because of drug charges or handling drugs or being in possession of drugs that are illegal, specifically cannabis. So, and you indicated that you had been arrested 5 times. So how many of these charges resulted in conviction?
No, as I assured you, we negotiate and they're dropped.
So none of these charges, none of these arrests resulted in charges and convictions?
None.
All right, so what do we record there, participants? What do we record?
0-0.
0-0. Okay. Very good. Now we go to L18. So George, I'm now going to ask you about other offenses that are considered less serious than the ones I asked you about earlier. Now, how many times in your life, George, have you been charged with being disorderly in your conduct, or vagrancy, or public intoxication?
In my life, as a drunkard, severally, not too many times. I don't think it can go beyond 6 times.
Okay, so 6 times?
Cannot go beyond 6 years.
All right, so participants, what do we record there?
0-6.
0-6, thank you very much. George, have you been arrested and charged for driving while intoxicated?
Yes, severally.
Severally. About how many times?
4 to 5 times.
4 to 5 times. So is it 4 times or is it 5 times?
You can't be sure. You can't be sure, Counselor.
So which one feels like it's more correct? Maybe we can try and remember which times these were.
Well, it's a long history, and then one time you're fighting, the other time you're this, so it's difficult. But let's put it at 5, maybe.
We put it at 5. Thank you very much. So L19 participants, what do we record?
05.
05. Thank you.
05.
Thank you. So George, have you ever been charged with major driving violations? For example, overspeeding, reckless driving, driving without a license?
No, not the major ones.
So which ones have you been arrested for?
Just the minor ones over there, driving while intoxicated and not overspeeding. It's difficult to overspeed when you are in a certain state.
Okay, thank you, George. So what do we record there, participants?
00.
00. Thank you very much. Now we are moving to the next section, George. In your life, have you been incarcerated?
No.
Not at all.
Not incarceration. No.
So for all the times you were arrested, did you ever go to court?
No, we negotiate. This is Africa. We talk things out before things go too far.
Okay, so participants, what do we put for L21?
00.
00. And you can hear George is raising very important information which we can put in our notes. Just because he has never been charged, just because he's never been incarcerated, does not mean he has not been committing offenses. It's because of the system issues. So we can put notes. You see, he keeps repeating these statements that yes, there are all these things happening, but we sort them out before they go to the system. So it's good to note all that information because this might be a client with high risk for legal issues. The only reason they are not having them is because of the nature of the system. So that's important information for our notes. So George, you said you have never been incarcerated. So then we cannot talk about your last incarceration, right?
I think that's accurate.
Okay, so what do we code for 22?
NN. Not applicable.
NN because it does not apply. Thank you. What about 23? NN because it also is not applicable because he has never been incarcerated. Okay, now we want to go to L28. No, not L28. We are going to L27, right? Yes, L27.
Sorry, British, please. This is Michael. Once more. I want to ask a question. I'm sorry.
Yes.
In this,
please ask. Who's speaking?
Michael.
Yes, Michael.
Yes. In these last two questions where we feel not applicable.
Yes.
But there were also other non-applicable cases where we feel 00.
Yes.
For example, in L21, how many months have you been incarcerated?
L21.
Yes. How many months have you been incarcerated? Also.
Okay, thank you. I want to respond to that. So in L21, we were supposed to give the number of months he has been incarcerated, and he said none. So we filled 00. So the next question, 22, says, if he has never been incarcerated, you can see the bullet under 22. If he has never been incarcerated in 21 above, then you enter NN for not applicable. The same with 23, that if it was NN for the earlier question, again, it is NN. Do you notice that?
Yeah, I've seen it now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, apparently, I noticed that the ASI tool we are projecting, the soft copy, is missing some item, L24 and 25 and 26. So it moves to 27. But I want to believe the hard copy you have has got 24, 25, and 26. Is that true?
Yes, it does.
Yes.
So for now, so we allow me to go to the hard copy. So the hard copy L24 is asking a question about George's current legal status, the current situation. So George, are you by any chance presently awaiting any charges, trial, or sentencing?
No. All
No,
dropped.
so what do we code there? Participants?
Zero.
We got 0. Thank you very much. Now, if at all he says no, what do you think we should code in L25?
NN.
And
not applicable.
Yes, not applicable.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then we are going to question 26, item 26. George, how many days in the past 30 days have you been detained or incarcerated?
Not detained, not incarcerated.
What about what about being arrested?
Yes, that is different, because if you are arrested, you're arrested at that particular point and you talk it out. So I think that is different from detained, because detained, you're taken to the police cell, you put him in the cell there. Here we talk before we get to the counter.
So you have been arrested, George, but you have never been detained.
Yeah, I've been detained, yes.
So explain to me how that happens.
I think it's a bit open here. If you have caught on the wrong side of the law and you have some liquid money that you can grease the hands of the policeman. So you agree you're on the wrong, but you seek to be forgiven. And the other person seeks to also have a little tea to be able to let you loose. So you kind of talk it out. And it looks to make things slightly easier for both of us.
Okay, thank you, George, for that honest information. How many times has this happened when you were arrested, but you were never detained?
In the last 30 days, probably.
Yes, in the last 30 days.
Probably just about twice.
About twice?
Probably about twice, yes.
Okay, thank you. So now, participants, what do you think we should record here?
02.
02.
02. 02.
Anybody else?
0, because he said it's never been detained or incarcerated.
0. So which one is which? Is it 00 or 02?
02.
Why 02 and why 00?
The answer, we should include the days he has been arrested and released on the same day.
Who is speaking?
Alero.
Yes, Alero.
Why?
Should include the days he's been arrested and released on the same day.
So include the days he has been arrested and released the same day.
Yes.
Very important. Yes, Grace. Yes, Grace. So Grace, you have raised your hand. Okay, it looks like we've lost Grace.
Hello, Madam Beatrice. Titi speaking,
Grace.
please.
Okay.
Titi speaking. I agree with him. I agree with Alero, because he said if he has been arrested and released, I go with Alero too.
So you think you would go for 2 days?
Yes.
But okay. Any other person? Donald, I can see your hand is raised. Not Donald, Paul. Yes, Paul? Paul, please speak, Paul. Okay, looks like we are not getting Paul. Is Donald? Donald, you've raised your hand. Please speak, Donald.
Okay, what George said is, yes, he has been arrested. But because he grazed the hands of the police, he's never been detained. So we have to go by the client. For I think he's 0.
So you think it is 00 because he currently, according to what he said, he gets arrested but never gets detained?
Yes.
And he does not, in fact, he even said he never gets to the police station at all. That's what he said. Okay,
it was.
I see Ujumwa wants to say something. Ujumwa?
Okay, yes. I feel it's I agree with Alero, obviously, as in the 02, because under that 26, there is a dog that says that it should include being arrested and released on the same day. So if that is an arrest, obviously that's still 02. But I want to clarify something. Are we going to probe him further? Since our L5 is 05, he said he had been arrested 5 times for the drug charges. The 5 times, is it happening in those 2 days? Or is it 5 different days? I just want clarification from George. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Alero. I'll actually clarify. The section for 5 days in L5, when he talked about being arrested 5 times, that's in his lifetime. So this question number 26 is looking for the last 30 days.
30 days, okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you. So are we agreeing that because he has been arrested, irrespective of not having reached the police station because of the issues he discussed, are we agreeing that the fact that he's been arrested and released the same day, we can code that as 2 days? Are we in agreement?
Yes.
Okay, so let's code 02. Thank you. Next, we are going
Hello.
to L27.
Hello, Beatrice, sorry.
Yes,
why
Moses?
02? Why
Now,
02 and not 00?
Okay, the argument we are trying to get across is
yes,
whether...
because one...
Yes.
This is what the client is telling. He has never been detained. He has never been incarcerated. We're looking at his own objective, subjective reporting. That is what the system allows them. It's not for us to bring our own biases. So I think it should be 00.
You think it should be 00? Well, I think it can be 00.
Irrespective of the fact that he greased their palms, the system allowed it, and he got away with it. He has never been detained because the meant is that detained, not for us to really legal or bring our own biases into it. Has he been detained? No. Has he been incarcerated? No. So it should be 00. That's my own question.
Okay, thank you, Moses, and your view is very valid. Actually, the challenge is that in the bullet below there, it says that you should include any arrests and release the same day. Now, the challenge is that George comes from a country where you can actually be arrested and spend the whole day in a police vehicle without reaching the police station. But technically you're under arrest. So the whole day you're in a police vehicle, but you don't get booked into the station. So that's why it's getting confusing because of that technicality. That's why we are saying all of us are right in the way we see it. But the fact that we are trying to see whether George has got problems or has had problems in the last 30 days related to legal, I think in the spirit of the question, that's why we would pick the 2 times. Because if George was in a country where the system was working, then he would definitely have been detained even if it's for some hours. But now he gets arrested, probably stays in the vehicle moving around as others are being arrested and negotiating, and never reaches the police station because of the system. So I think that's what is bringing that confusion. So in the spirit of the question, I think we can pick the 02, but indeed the 00 would apply because of that. Okay, so next we go to item 27. Okay. Thank you, Moses. So item 27 is also asking about the last 30 days. So George, have I lost you? So George, speak to me so that I can see you on my screen.
I'm around here.
Thank you, George. So George, I'm going to ask you a few other questions before we complete this section. Now, in the last 30 days, have you engaged in any illegal activities to make money?
No, I don't make money out of drugs.
And maybe I should give you examples of these illegal activities. For example, dealing with drugs, selling stolen items, prostitution, or any other kind of illegal activity.
No, mine is purely possession, not dealing.
Mm-hmm. Not dealing. Thank you very much. So I hope members, you note that we are told to exclude simple drug possession, which is what George engages in, and only pick the dealings, because here we are interested in whether he's making a profit from the drugs. so that when we are planning his treatment, we can know how to deal with that. So what do we code here?
00.
00. Thank you. We go to L28. Now, George, I want you to look at your rating scale that I had given you earlier. I want to remind you what that rating scale is about. You're supposed to look at it. You can see that it has numbers from 0 to 4, where 0 is not at all, 1 means slightly, 2 is moderately, 3 is considerably, and 4 is extremely. So I'm going to be asking you 2 questions and asking you to refer to that card. So in the last, based on the question I asked you about the last 30 days, George, how serious do you feel that your present legal issues are to you? How serious do you feel they are? Do you think it is not at all? Do you think it is slightly, it is moderately, considerably, or extremely?
No, it's not an issue. Not at all.
Not an issue at all.
Not at all.
Okay, how come you feel it's not an issue at all, and on some occasions you get arrested?
You get arrested and you sort it out. It only becomes an issue if you're not able to sort it out, but if you can sort it out.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So what do we code participants?
0.
We code 0. All right. And George, one more question. Now, looking at the fact that you sometimes do get arrested for being, handling or being in possession of drugs that are not legal, how important is it for you to get counseling or referral to address these legal issues? Again, use your rating scale.
Again, I don't feel like I have legal issues to be counseled over. Mm-hmm. No charges, no convictions. No, I don't think I need counseling on this one.
Okay. So here what are we going to code participants?
0. 0.
Going to code 0, 0. Interestingly, you can see that we have a client who has quite some issues with the legal problems, but because of the nature of the system that he's operating around, from his perspective, he doesn't see any problem. And that's why when you finally come to do your interviewer severity ratings, you are allowed to give your judgment based on your assessment of your client. So thank you very much. That is the legal section, and we are going to end there. And if you allow me, we will then move to the next section about family and social. Is it okay?
It's okay. It's okay.
Thank you. So let me, members, first go to the slides and introduce you to the slides on the next section. Remember, we are now going to the next section, which is basically the family and social status. We have been looking at several sections. Now we want to look at the family and the social circumstances of the client. So looking at our slides, we want to introduce George to the next section. This is the family stroke social status section. So as always, please remember to transition the client to that new section and ask them whether they are ready to move on. Then you introduce this section by letting them know that you're going to be asking them about personal relationships. I hope you can see my slides. Jessica, can you see the slides?
Yes.
Yes, you can see it.
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, I can see them.
Oh, yes, I can see.
All right, thank you. So we can mute our sound for now. So we're going to introduce the client to the section and tell them we're going to be asking them about their personal relationships, including their marital status, their living situations, whether they have any problems with their family or friends, and whether they are satisfied with the current status. The first 3 questions focus on marital status. They inquire whether the person is married, and there are a whole 6 different points which you choose from. You ask about the duration of the relationship and whether they are satisfied. In the next section, you ask about living arrangement. Where is the client living, the duration, and whether they are satisfied around that. Then you go to their home environment. Find out whether anybody in their home environment has an alcohol or drug problem. And then in the next question, you want to know what the client does with their free time. Do they spend time with family, with friends, or even alone? And whether they are satisfied with that. This is to try and help you know whether maybe your client has issues of having friends who use substances and they spend most of their time with them, or if they are a loner who lives an isolated life and probably uses substances in isolation. So you will need to address those things in treatment planning. You also want to know about their friends. And you want to know whether the client has some close friends outside the family. And if they don't, then that becomes an area of focus when you're planning treatment. You also want to know how well your client gets along with people, whether they have challenges, so that you can address that again as an area of focus. Then you also want to know whether your client has any problems with relationships, which are extended, not just the usual we disagreed in one instance, but extended problems, whether with their family, with their neighbors, with their friends, etc. And this includes constant arguments, animosity, and so on and so forth. Then you also want to know whether your client has been a victim of any type of abuse, whether emotional, physical, or even sexual. And this is very sensitive information, so you ask it with a lot of empathy and a lot of sensitivity, and you do not probe too much, especially if you're not going to be the one that is working with this client as the treatment counselor. But you also want to ask whether, if, for example, they have been victims of sexual abuse, whether anybody knows that or they have shared with anybody.
Driver, look for small plate and share it. Give them the small small.
Has muted me. Okay, thank you. I hope you heard what I said. Please make sure to mute yourselves so that you can hear me. I got muted by mistake. So we are saying that if your client reports sexual abuse, it's good to find out whether they have shared that with anyone else in the past so that you can know whether they got any kind of help. And we are saying it's a sensitive area, so we ask with a lot of sensitivity. The other thing we want to know about is whether the client has had problems with the family in the last 30 days. We want to know what kind of problem and whether they are troubled by those problems. So this is basically the last question. So that's what is expected of this, and of course, problems with other people. So now we go to the ASI tool itself, and we want to look at those items in the ASI and try and see whether we can answer some of these questions. Okay, now there is a little challenge here. Let me get to, I think this tool here has, the soft copy has a little bit of a difference in some of the sections. Okay, so this is where we begin. So George, thank you once again for your many answers and very honest answers to the section that we went through on your legal status. Now, I want to ask you questions in a different section of your life. I want to talk about your family and your social relationships. I hope you're ready to move on to this section, George.
I'm ready.
Thank you very much. So in this section, I'll be asking you about, among other things, your marital status. I'm going to be asking you about your satisfaction with this status. I'm going to be asking you where you live and whom you live with, and whether you're satisfied about where you're living. I'm going to be asking you whether the people you live with use substances. I'm also going to be asking you about whether you have any difficulties in your relationships, whether in your family or the neighborhood or even other relations. So welcome, George. So we're going to begin with question F1. George, what is your marital status?
I'm married.
You're married. So what are we going to code there, members? Question F1?
One.
We're going to code 1. Thank you very much. George, how long have you been married?
9 years now.
9 years.
Mhm.
Is it exactly 9 years or 9 years and some months or 8 years and some months?
I think it's 9 years and about 3 months.
9 years and 3 months. So what are we going to code there, participants?
0903.
0903. Very good. Thank you. So supposing George had said he was never married. Now that's what we are being told in the bullet point there. If he had never been married, for us to work out the number of years he has been unmarried, we would have worked out the number of years after age 18, because it is assumed that you should be married, or you would be married, the age for marriage is after you become an adult. So if George was not married and he's maybe 30 years, and we would work out how long he has been not married, we would say 30 minus 18 to make 12. So that's what we are being reminded here. The other thing about question 1, the bullet there tells you that if your client is married, not necessarily legally, but by what is called common law marriage. What is common law marriage?
And what is common law marriage?
Yes, common law marriage. Anybody who wants to give us an answer? What is meant by common law marriage? Because we are advised in question 1, we should code it as 1 and specify in the comments. Yes? Dionuka.
Okay.
Yes, Dionuka has raised their hand. Yes, Dionuka? Okay, Fatima?
Yes. Common law are the local laws of where the people live.
Mm-hmm. The local laws of where people live. They are not necessarily a marriage that has gone through the legal processes. It may not even have gone through the religious processes, but that community recognizes that marriage. In my country, we have got a marriage we call Come We Stay. So Come We Stay is a common law marriage. So we've been together for years. We've never necessarily gone to church or to the registrar of marriages, but we consider ourselves married, and even the families consider us married, even the community. So that's what we are saying. You may have such kinds of clients, so you consider that as a marriage and code it under number 1. Okay, question number 3. George, you have told me you've been married now for 9 years and 3 months. Are you satisfied with this situation?
Yes, I'm satisfied with my marriage.
So what do we code here, members?
2.
Yes, what do we code for
2.
F3? 0, 1, or 2?
It's 2.
We code 2 for yes. Thank you. Now, question number 4 is asking about the last 3 years of George's life. So George, in the last 3 years, where have you generally been living? Is it with your sexual partner and your children? Is it with your sexual partner alone? Is it with your children alone? Is it with your parents? Is it with your family? Is it with friends? Have you been living alone? Have you been in a controlled environment? Or do you have no stable arrangement, meaning you can be in different places at different times? Which is which, George?
I've been living with my wife and children.
With your wife and children. Okay. So what do we code in F4?
1.
0, 1. So we code 1. Thank you. We code 1. Now we go to F5. So George, how long have you lived with your wife and children? Within the last 3 years?
The entire 3 years.
The entire 3 years. Okay, so we are going to put 03. What are we going to put in F5?
0300.
0300.
Thank you very much.
Yes, 00.
Then we
Yeah.
go to F6. We go to F6. F6, George, are you satisfied with these arrangements where you're living with your wife and children, or are you happy about it?
I think I'm satisfied.
You're satisfied. So what do we code there in F6?
2.
We code 2. Thank you. Then we go to F7. So George, Are you living with anyone who has a current alcohol problem?
No, my wife doesn't drink, my children don't drink either.
Okay, so what do we code for 7?
0.
0, thank you. Then we go to F8. George, among the people you're living with, is there anybody who uses non-prescribed drugs or abuses drugs that have been prescribed by a doctor?
My wife occasionally uses sleeping pills.
Mhm.
I'm not sure they're prescribed. I think she just buys them from the counter. I'm not sure they're prescribed.
Okay. Thank you. So what do we rate for number 8?
1.
1. Thank you very much. F9. George, I'm now going to ask you about your free time. Whom do you spend most of your free time with?
Free time, I think I spend most of it with friends in the drinking. Yeah, in the drinking drinks. Yes.
Okay, so it is not with family?
You come to family in the night to sleep, take dinner and sleep.
And it is not alone?
No, not alone.
Okay, so what do we code for F9?
2.
2, thank you. F10, George, are you satisfied with the way you're spending your free time right now?
Well, I wish I could spend maybe some of it with the family. So I think I'm not satisfied.
So the answer would be no?
Yes, answer would be no.
Okay, so what do we code in F10?
0.
Thank you. George, how many close friends do you have other than family members?
My drinking buddies are close friends, or maybe drinking friends. Maybe we are a team of about 8 guys who drink together.
About 8.
About 8 guys, yes.
What do we put in F11?
8.
We put?
8.
We put 8. Okay. Now, again, I see that the copy on the soft copy does not have 12. So I'm going to go to the hard copy and we are going to ask George about the question number 12 to 17. So George, in this section, I want to know how well you get along with your family as well as your friends. So I'm going to be asking you the following question. Would you say that you have had a close personal relationship with the following people in your life? Can someone please mute your phone, mute your audio? So George, would you say you have had close lasting relationships with your mother?
My mother, yes.
Your mother, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So what do we code in number 12?
1.
We code 1 because it's a yes. Thank you. George, how about with your father?
That one we disagree because he wants money and I can't offer him money. We have issues.
Okay. So what do we code?
0.
For 13? 0, because it is a no. George, what about your brothers and sisters?
For that one is okay.
So would we say that you have close relationships?
Yes, with my siblings, that's close.
Okay, so what do we code there?
1.
1. How about your wife, George?
Well, we have our fights. I don't know how close that will be, but we have occasional disagreements. Not occasional, quite often. Yeah, quite often disagreements.
So would you classify it as a no or a yes, or you would be uncertain about it?
Uncertain would be more. Uncertain would be more certain.
Would be more.
Would be more certain in this situation.
Okay,
yes.
so what do we code, class?
X.
We code X because there is uncertainty. And that's important because we know that when it comes to helping our client, that will be one of the areas we shall be focusing on in terms of his social relationships. Thank you. George, what about your children?
I love them. I love them and I think I'm close to them. It's only that I don't have time with them.
Okay, so for your children, you think you have close relationships?
I think I have a close relationship.
Okay, so what do we code for 16?
1.
We code 1. Okay, George, what about your friends?
Our drinking buddies, so those ones are very close.
So you have a very good relationship with your friends, but they are mainly drinking friends. So in the comments section, we are going to make those comments. So what do we code for 17?
1.
1. And then we make the comments that these friends are largely drinking friends. I see, Grace, you're trying to raise your hand. Yes, Grace?
Yes, initially I wanted to check indifferent, but later I saw the column where they said uncertain for number 15.
Sorry?
For the
Please repeat that, Grace.
I said initially,
yes,
concerning, I wanted to write indifferent, but later I saw the asterisk uncertain and I kept quiet.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Grace. Okay, now we want to go to question number 18. And George, I'm going to be asking you questions around problems you may be having with your relationships in a little more detail. So I'm going to be asking you these questions in 2 phases, the last 30 days and also in your lifetime. So I'm going to begin with the following. Have you experienced significant periods in which you have had serious problems getting along with your mother in the last 30 days?
No, with my mother, no.
With your mother, no. So what do we give as the answer for F18, the first column of 30 days?
0.
0. We give 0. What about in your lifetime, George? Have you had problems getting along with your mother?
Not serious problems.
Not serious problems. So what do we write there?
0.
0. Thank you. George, what about your father in the last 30 days?
Yes, we've had a major quarrel once this month.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So for the father, what do we write? First 30 days?
1.
Very good. What about in your lifetime, George, with your father?
Yes, we've had serious quarrels all my life.
Okay, thank you. So we also put
1.
Okay, what about your brothers and sisters, George, in the last 30 days?
No.
Not at all. So we put
0.
0. What about in your lifetime, George, your brothers and sisters?
Not serious problems.
Not serious problems. So we put
0.
0. What about your wife in the last 30 days?
Yes, she threatens once in a while to walk out of the marriage. So I think we've had 2 occasions this month when she's threatened to walk out.
So for your wife, you would say it is a yes?
Yes, it is.
In the last 30 days. So what do we write there?
1.
1. What about in your lifetime, George, in your married life?
Yes, all the years I've been drinking, it's been problematic with her.
So we say it's a yes for that as well. So what do we code?
1.
Okay, what about your children in the last 30 days, George? Any problems?
No, not.
No, so what do we code?
0.
You know, what about ever since your children were born, George? Would you say that you've had problems with them?
The issue of problems with children, not serious problems.
Okay. So what do we code there?
0.
0.
Is there any other important family member, George, that you have had problems getting along with in the last 30 days?
No, no other.
No. So what do we code there?
0.
0. What about in your lifetime, George? Is there a family member that is significant to you and you have had problems getting along with?
Well, maybe my wife's sisters, once in a while we don't go along.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And are they important to you, the sisters to your wife?
Yes, because they seem to support my wife once in a while when she wants to run away. So they seem to be willing to take her in. So I have a problem.
Okay. Thank you. So what do we write there under F23?
1.
We write 1 under lifetime and we specify, what do we specify?
We specify
who they are. Yes, it is the wife. That's very important. And then in the notes, we can add a few more notes. Okay, George, are there any close friends of yours that you have had problems getting along with in the last 30 days?
Well, there's one whose debt I've not been able to pay, so he's been threatening to take some action. So I think I have a problem of, yeah, there's one.
Thank you. So what do we code there in F24?
1.
Past 30 days, 1. Very good. And then we make some notes in the comments. George, what about in your lifetime? Are there friends that you have had problems getting along with? Close friends?
Yes, same close friends. Once in a while you disagree either over money or over women. Yeah, once in a while you break up rather.
Okay, thank you. So what are we going to write there in lifetime?
1.
1, and then we make some comments around the issues George is raising. George, have you had any problems, serious problems getting along with your neighbors in the last 30 days?
On 2 occasions, they have complained that I'm too noisy, coming to knock the gate, the compound gate late in the night. So on 2 occasions this month.
Okay, so what do we code there under F25, first section?
1.
1. What about in your lifetime, George? Have you had problems with your neighbors?
Oh yes. Same issues, noise and coming in late.
Okay. So we again code 1 in the lifetime, and then we make the comments around that, because you can see it's the same recurrent issue. Okay, finally, George, for this section, have you had serious problems with your co-workers? You said you were a teacher. Have you had serious problems with your co-workers in the last 30 days?
Yes, we do disagreement. We do have a hard time once in a while, because some of them think I'm leaving my duties undone, which puts them at a greater responsibility.
So what do we code F26 section 1?
1.
1, thank you. What about generally in your lifetime, George?
It recurs constantly.
So it recurs constantly. So what do we code there?
1 also.
1, very good. We are just a few more and then we are done. Thank you for your extra time. George, now I'm going to quite a sensitive area that I want to ask you questions about. Like I said before, these are questions we ask all our clients so that we make sure we have not left out any area that we would like to support them in. So I'm going to be asking you whether you have any history of having been abused, whether emotionally, whether physically or sexually, in the last 30 days or in your life. So I'll begin with the emotional abuse. Emotional abuse is where someone made you feel bad, maybe by using harsh words on you, intimidating you. Has that happened in the last 30 days, George, to you?
No.
No. So what do we write there? F27 part 1?
0.
And he said he had problems with his neighbors. They talked to him. Was that not emotional abuse?
Okay, you can look at it that way. But at the same time, we think of abuse more in terms of issues of power and control, especially if it is in relationships. The good thing with neighbors is that neighbors are in their house and in their space. They only talk to you badly if you interfere with their spaces. But in abuse, it is someone within your relationship setting that actually, because of power differences, intimidates you and makes
that is
so
domestic
that
violence. It could also be in the neighborhood too.
Sorry?
It's okay for the the violence could be in the neighborhood. Emotional abuse could be in the neighborhood. But fine, that one that you are saying is domestic violence, which is fine. But then his wife has had arguments with him. So, so that's one needs to also cross-check that one well, actually.
Okay, noted. Thank you. So we can probe George further to know whether he might be a victim of emotional abuse from his own wife or even the sisters to his wife, because they have been a part of his relationship. So thank you for that, Michael. And when we have a little more time, we can probe further with George. Okay, what about in your lifetime, George?
Well, yes, my father calls me a drunkard, has been calling me a drunkard all this time. So I think that is It insults me to the core.
Mm-hmm. So it makes you feel really bad about yourself.
Yes, it's horrible coming from my father.
Okay. Has that happened in the last 30 days?
Not in the last 30 days, but in the last few years, he's been calling me a drunkard.
Okay, thank you. So what do we code for 27, the second column?
1.
We code 1. Thank you. All right, George, in the last 30 days, has anybody physically abused you or caused you physical harm?
We have fought once with a friend in the last 30 days.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so there has been physical abuse with a friend or from a friend. So what do we code in the first column?
1.
1. What about in your life, George? Have you been abused physically by anybody?
Yes. As a drunkard, even the police themselves harass you physically and for they extort money from you. That happens all the time.
So that has happened. So what do we code there?
1.
1, yes, very important. And finally, George, has anybody sexually abused you or forced you into sexual acts or advances?
No.
In the last 30 days?
No, not even in my lifetime.
Not even in your lifetime. So what do we code there in F29?
1. Oh, 0, sorry.
0. Now, the information we get here is important because it can actually help us know whether our client has a history of trauma because of abuse, which can form a good basis for making a treatment intervention for George. And if he says particularly that he has been sexually abused, we want to ask him a further question, whether he has spoken to anyone about it, whether he has ever received help for it, and then we will tell him that part of what we shall be doing is helping him get support. Okay, now we go to the almost last section. So George, in the last 30 days, have you had serious conflicts with your family?
Yes, with my wife, we've had some serious disagreements.
So how many days has that happened in the last 30 days?
Probably about 6 days so far.
About 6 days. So what do we code for F30?
6.
We code 6.
What if it's about 10 days?
Okay. What about other people outside your family, George? Have you had serious conflicts with them within the last 30 days?
Maybe the sisters on 2 occasions. The sisters of the wife, yeah.
Okay. So what do we put in 31?
1.
He says it is 2 days. So do we put 1 or 2?
Okay, 2.
So we put 2, and then we remember in our comments, we make the notes about the people that George is talking to us about. Now, George, we are going to the final section where I'm going to ask you to use the rating card that I had given you earlier, which has the scale of 0 to 4, where 0 means you're not at all bothered, 1 means slightly, 2 means moderately, 3 means considerably, and 4 means extremely. So George, how troubled or bothered have you been in the last 30 days by these problems that you have been having in the family? Is it a 0? Is it a 1, a 2, a 3, or a 4?
I think it's a 4 in this matter.
So for the family, you think it is extremely bothered. Okay, and you can ask George a little more about who are the key people in the family that bother him the most, and you put in the notes. And this can help you in terms of prioritizing. So he might talk about the father, he might talk about the wife, he might talk about the sisters to the wife. All right, George, in the last 30 days, are you troubled, or how troubled are you by the social problems that you have experienced?
Well, that one is just about moderate.
It's about moderate. So what are we going to code there?
Moderate is 3, ba?
Moderate is 2. Moderate is 2. Okay. Finally, George, we go to the final question. Again, you're still going to use this card. Please tell me, how important is it for you to get treatment or counseling to address these family problems that are bothering you?
It's very, very important.
It is very important. So when you look at this scorecard, would you call it considerably, or extremely?
Extremely.
Extremely. So what do we put in F34?
4. 4.
It is 4. It is 4. Very good. Okay,
Yes,
George.
yes, yes.
And how important is it for you to get treatment or counseling for the social problems that you have experienced in these last 30 days?
Moderate. That one is not a big issue, so maybe I'll give it a score of 2.
So you would give it a score of 2 for moderate. Thank you very much, George, for your very honest responses. Class, you have done a very good job of taking George successfully through the family and social status section. I thank you for the extra time that you have given us to complete this section, so that tomorrow when we meet, we can go straight to the psychiatric section and go to treatment planning and documentation. So thank you very much for your patience, and thank you for your commitment and participation. I hand it over to Jessica. Thank you.
Hey everyone, thank you for staying with us even though we started a bit later today. I know it's very late now for some of you and you're probably very tired, but I think that's it for today, and I will see you tomorrow unless anyone else has anything to add. We all good?
Thank you.
All right, good night everyone.
Bye, Jessica.
Good night. Good night, Prof.
There are some questions in the chat. We shall try and look at them and respond to them in the LMS. Thank you.
Night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, George.
Thank you, George.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thank you, our facilitator. Thank you, Jessica. And thank you, George. Bye. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.